All right, in this video, I'm going to once again be fixing a no drain issue in this KitchenAid dishwasher. KitchenAid makes things like Maytag, Whirlpool, a bunch of others, all the same stuff. But this one you can see there's water standing in the bottom. It will drain out if I hit the drain cycle about 8 times, so it does eventually get lower and lower. And ultimately I end up replacing the pump motor. So if you just want to see the pump motor, I'll put a timestamps and you can just jump ahead to that. But before I do that, I'll go through my recommendations. If you have water that's just not draining out of your dishwasher. So I'm going to drain it by hand initially. And I'm going to take the top end of this thing apart and just make sure that there's nothing clogged up. I think your first order of business is just make sure none of the hoses and components that are involved in the draining system are clogged, blocked, pinched off, that kind of thing. So this one has, I don't know, 6 to 8 screws up top, and then you can get right down pretty close to the pump motor for the drain. And I'm not really seeing any major clogs or anything that should be blocking anything. So I go downstairs and I turn off the power to the dishwasher. I obviously check that, and I turn it off at the breaker. And then you may have to do things like disconnect your water and stuff. I've got lots of cable and lots of hose, not in different area codes, but right in this dishwasher. So it's not a big deal for me to pull the dishwasher out. You may want to turn off the water depending on what your situation. For me, I really just need to disconnect this drain hose. And this drain hose is another thing that you should make sure isn't clogged. And I would disconnect it all the way back to where it connects to your actual sink plumbing and just rule out any blockage as a potential problem. My dishwasher also has screws that go through the side and into the cupboard, so you might have that as well, and that's just some of the things you have to take off to get your dishwasher out of the wall. Now, this is actually a bit of recycled content from my previous video on cleaning this water wall on the dishwasher, but anyway, you can see how much electrical hose, water hose, and drainage line I've got to work with, so quite a bit. But this is the other thing I'd check is right in here on your water wall. So if this thing's all clogged up, that could be an issue. So I'll put the water wall cleaning video I've got already in the description of this video. So if you want to watch that, maybe that's your problem. But if not, what I would do here is just take off these hoses. So the hose I just took off is the one that goes from the drain pump motor into the water wall. So it'll go up the water wall and then it goes out this hose that I'm taking off now. So you could remove those, make sure there's no clogs. Again, look in your water wall thing, that clear plastic piece, make sure that's not clogged. And then just trace these hoses back and just make sure there's no clogs, nothing pinched, that sort of thing. So that's probably the most likely culprit to a draining issue. Basically, you're looking for food. That is the most likely thing that's going to clog this thing up. And if you want to take off these water walls, there's just that one plastic piece that goes on the inside. It's like a pressure control thing, I believe. And once that is removed, it just comes out, no problem. So I want to get to the other side of the dishwasher though. So I'm actually going to set it down on the water wall. So this is all new footage, not recycled anymore. And that's the drain pump right there. So there are a few things that can go wrong. Obviously it can burn out, and it could also get clogged up with food or have something that's mechanically broken inside. So there's a little clip. So on this model anyway, there's no screws to take it off. It's very accessible. So you just push in that little clip so that little indentation doesn't stop it from turning. And then obviously you just turn it all the way out. The electrical connector is a little bit tricky to remove on these. There's a little plastic piece that pushes down, and then there's another little plastic piece that you have to push in to get the electrical connector off. But overall, pretty easy to do, pretty straightforward. And like I said, not a single tool is required to do this. And everything looks good, but the impeller spins very slowly. And that's probably the issue here, is that there's actually some sort of food junk or some sort of corrosion inside of this thing that's just making that impeller turn a lot slower than it should be. Now I do use a multimeter to test the resistance on this pump. This is obviously the one that came with the dishwasher originally. And I would say the internet led me astray on this. Now it jumps around a little bit, but it's going to sit down at 28 once I get it sorted out. And looking at where it should be on random internet forums, you know, a lot of people were saying it should be about 100, 120-ish. So that's why I actually bought a replacement, which I got off Amazon. It was super fast to get in, and it was probably the best deal overall for me anyway. And it has the exact same resistance. They're both at 28 ohms. So obviously that's not the problem. So don't believe everything you see on the internet where People are saying it should be about 150 plus or minus 10%. That's not true at all. And it's at about this point where I really lose my confidence that it was the pump motor that's the problem. But obviously I've ruled pretty much everything else out. And in this case, it is the pump motor, and it's not a resistance issue. Like I said, I think something just got inside of the pump and is actually causing the impeller to have a hard time turning. So I think it's just turning very, very slowly, and that is the issue. And that is why it also takes 5 or 6 drain cycles, and it will eventually drain itself. So anyway, I got the new one, I got the wiring hooked up, and then I put it in place. And super easy to put these things in, at least if you got a model like this one. Just put it in the right position and then turn it righty-tighty until that little piece of plastic clicks on the little indent on the plastic part of the dishwasher there. I'm not sure what that is. I guess just more drain component. Just like that, you can see it got locked in place, and then you can give it a turn to the left, right, and it's not going to move. Obviously, you have to do that indentation to move it. And you can see the hose, if you're looking at it from this angle, where it connects to the drain pump as well. And there's a little bit better of a shot of how to remove the drain pump. Like I said, push that little indent thing down, and then you can turn it. Anyway, ultimately, this is what fixes my problem. And like I said, check your top end of the dishwasher first before you pull it out. Turn off the power, make sure all the hoses are clear, all the way back to the plumbing for the sink. And if nothing else fixes it, I would go with the drain pump. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.